Second part is the monophonic voice. It's not completely finished yet, but 90% done. And the main thing to take out of it, if you have one envelope, route it to as many inputs as you can, so you get many parameters to mingle with. And main thing, sequence your melody separately from your rhythm. That's the main thing to take it out from. So yeah, the polyphonic patch is done with, like, I do quad polyphony with like 4 VCOs, 4 VCAs, 4 envelopes and 1 common filter. You can use 4 filters, but I use just 1 with a mix of the envelopes. That works out for me. And yeah, my VCO is, as far as I know, the only VCO on the market that's suitable for this patch at the moment. Why is that? It's because when you know, polyphony, you get like 4 voices, and you can make this polyphony out of 4 separate monophonic voices, right? But the difference for me is that it's 1 instrument for me. It's 1 voice, 4 notes, but 1 thing. So I have 1 envelope controls, 1 pitch controls, 1 volume controls, 1 filter cutoff, 1 everything for all the 4 voices at the same time. And only as far as, and I stress it out, as far as I know, the only VCO that lets me do all of this without any extra stuff in this format is currently the Studio Electronics Quadnic. It didn't do it at first. I bought it out of tech specifications because, like, I check out demos and I was like, yeah, this is 4 VCOs, it's cool, and you got like stuff and it has common mode, so I buy it and it doesn't work that way. So I was really like stressed out. I write them, you know, some suggestions for improvements, waited 1 month and they make a software update and now it works as it's supposed to. So it's I think it's really only a real like polyphonic solution at the moment, like all in one, because like you can make this by taking a voltage source and splitting it. You know, like let's say you would have whatever, wavetable VCO or anything, and you want to control multiple modules at the same time with 1 knob. You can either have a module that's like voltage generator, like the mutable instruments with this big colorful knob. How is it called? Frames. Yes. For example, that's good solution for this. Or simple voltage source that you split up and run to all your stuff. So in situation when I have my polyphonic situation with 4 filters, for example, I take this 1 voltage source, take multiple or something, run it to all of them at the same time and tweak 1 knob to control all at the same time. But the Quadnic lets me do all of this at the same time. So let's listen to it dry from the mixed output. So we see what's going on. So I can tune all these 4 VCOs at the same time. Waveforms to all volume, everything, all VCOs at the same time. each of them has its own separate volt per octave input, and each of them has its own signal output. Right now we are listening to mix output, which is the output that I run into my monophonic voice. So I mix it up. Yeah. But let's come back to this like polyphonic patch. So I take the separate outputs and run them into the VCAs. I have, as I said before, I have 11 VCAs in the system. I really like this Quattro Figaro module from Bastel because it's like 4 VCAs in 10 HP. And each of them has its gain stage plus voltage control with built-in inverter. So anything you plug in, it has its output with like a negative reflection of it, and mixing solution. So you can like mix down your things in pairs or all together. This glue gun stuff. So I take the outputs from all the envelopes, the VCOs, and I run them separately into each VCA's input. And let's listen to the output of the VCA, and so we can listen to it as a mixer. So I have my notes separately now to mix down. So when I want to be droning, I can just like mix this up. So now I need 4 envelopes to control these VCAs, right? I was searching for good like polyphonic solution for like generating 4 envelopes. There's many modules that would come in mind. For example, IntelliGel Quadra, or this quad voltage voltage controlled envelope from Depfer, or double Befaco Rampage setup or something. But after experimentation and long search for the perfect module for me personally, I end up with just friends from Mannequins. And that's because I found out that musically it's most like I want to use non-retriggable envelopes. Those are these envelopes that you cannot trigger until the cycle is finished. Simply for like creating this musicality and different variations of the very same melodic progressions you have. Because you know you have many notes changing pre-VCA, and then you just like opening one voice, another, here, there. You know, it's like strings. I approach it as strings, or in fact more like 4-voice tunable kalimba sort of business. Okay, so yeah, again, I'm like sequencing melody content separately from the rhythmical content, and this most complicated thing about the stuff, so I'm going to really like, it's going to be a little bit mess. Don't hesitate to stop me and ask if it doesn't make sense. Okay, so let's run. Let's make something like more mellow rhythm. Yeah, like super dump. So you have some sense of tempo. And I will take another like trigger channel from my sequencer and hit these envelopes. Trigger them all at the same time with like so this like non-retrigable. If I change the ratio between them, the note cannot like sound again if it's still playing. So you have, if I put many triggers there, like this, I can filter down the envelope, filter the sequence to be less complex. You know? It's, yes. So that's the point of like having these like non-retrigable envelopes in the in this patch. Because if I have them retrigable, it's always going to sound the same. Now I change the pattern. And that's boring. If I like make some like musical outcome, there's simple controls. Yes, because this allows me to change the ratio between the separate envelopes. So this is the super basic, but I take this and run it into the filter. Let's listen after the filter. So this, so simple sawtooth. You can filter it down, and I want all of these envelopes, mix them, and control the filter cutoff with the mix of these envelopes. Well, now I don't control pitch at all. This is just four notes, you know. Well, here I'm using it like I'm not sequencing it. This is just like 4 different pitches. Well, here you can like select if you do detune or select chord or control them all separately. That's the mode that I suggested that they implement, and they did, thank God. And now there's this amazing wavetable VCO that like can do this in it has 12 HP, 4 VCOs and common controls. There's no replacement for this in the market at the moment, but it's really could be really nice to have 4 different VCOs next to each other and select waveform per one and so on. But then you get into like issues with tuning. You know, it's hard with this voice when you have 4 very, very similar sounds and one of your VCOs goes out of tune. How do you figure out which one it is? Only by experimentation. So if you go and touch the VCO that's in tune currently, you detune it and suddenly you have 2 VCOs that are out of tune. You know, so that's tricky as fuck. That's why it's good to like have this figured out. That's why for such situation I recommend digital modules that don't have heat sensitivity, or they just like are what they are all the time. And common controls, when you don't have to like you tune it once, you know, and then control all at the same time, and you don't touch separate tunings. So let's sequence this, right? So because I don't want to play separate I don't want to recall patterns. I want to play what I feel like playing at the moment. What I'm doing is that I'm using the very same sequence. This is running in arpeggiation mode, and I use that this sequence that's doing this. I will use this very same melody progression for controlling all the 4 VCOs at the same time. But that raises a question: how are you going to deal with the 4 VCOs? What you can do is that you take this and you control all at the same time and change your intervals. So let's try it right now. So I have I select my chord and I take this voltage and I control all at the same time. This makes trouble because I'm transposing within a scale, and the intervals, some intervals that come there are out of tune. That's why it sounds weird. Right? So you have you can go unison, something that's based on fifths, something to this doesn't sound shitty, but you change the chord. This is not musical. Or at least I don't consider it to be. Because it's easy, you know, like for a good performance, you want to, like, let's say, it has some sort of, like, your performance has some like curve. Sometimes you're better, sometimes it's like nya nya nya, and you want your bottom level to be really good, you know? So you don't get into shit region ever, you know? Like when you're bad, it needs to be good, and so you range from good to great, not from what the fuck to good to sometimes it goes great. So for me, like, how am I trying to improve myself is that I'm cutting off the shit region, you know? So I don't get totally out of tune, I don't get to crazy stuff that like is out of my control and sounds shitty. I want it to like be always like at least all right. That's the bottom level, right? So this is a no-go for me, because if I would use this, I tweak something and I suddenly have suddenly something like this, and that completely ruins my mood, you know? So you need different way of, or at least for me, I need different way of distributing the voltage, because this like fixed interval and transposing the interval is not musical and doesn't work. So I want to take this like input, or like one voltage going from your step sequencer or a keyboard or anything it is, and distribute it smart to the four voices, so it sounds always like respectful to what your sequence actually is. And there's not many solutions for this. Up until recently, because like I did this like development and stuff, and Teletype Václav, our main engineer, and he designed a module that is like 4-channel MIDI to CV converter with like many features that let you approach this real well with like a MIDI keyboard and so on. But that's including MIDI and is not it's not the ultimate solution, you know. So what you would like to do here is some really precise shift register setup, where you like take the voltage, you sample the voltage, and then you distribute it to 4 VCOs, or any VCOs as much as your polyphony goes. So if you have 6 VCOs, you would need like 6 shift register that has 6 outputs, and you sequentially sample your voltage into each of them. So every step you go, you have and it, you know, the shift register, I don't know if you're familiar with that concept, but it needs 6 things, coins, yes. So it's going to happen like if I have 4-note polyphony, and I will have like some tones, you know, let's say this is C and this is D flat, this is F, G and A and C above octave, right? I have my 4-note shift register, and this is my sequence, this is tones I play, right? And I have like 4 slots. Let's make some 4 compartments. Yes. Yeah. So these are my outputs, right? Brown output, black output, and this shiny output. And I have my sequence, and what I want to do is to distribute it smart. So and in the shift register like fashion, it means that the first step is going to be C. It comes here. It gets sampled and gets outputted here to the VCO. This is patched to VCO1, VCO2, VCO3, VCO4. So here's VCO1 has plays C now. Next step, next tick of a clock, and next note comes. And what happens is that C moves to the VCO2, and here comes the F. Another step, C comes to the VCO3, F comes to the VCO2, and there's D flat coming to the VCO1. Then again, boom, and again. You know, it gets like sequentially browse through and distributes the voltages to your VCOs in a way that it respects the sequence, and there's always, and the only rule is that always the 4 last played notes are going to be present in your VCOs, no matter what they are, and they always will reflect the last played stuff you did. So that's this like shift register sample hold sort of like setup. You could patch it up with like logic shift register that just does gates and sample and hold, like precise sample and hold modules, or there are like I think IntelliGel made this module that can do this, HP or something, I didn't play it. Shifty, yeah, there's Shifty that's that approach this directly. So it's ornament and crime. There's like multiple modules that can do this. But you can make it even more interesting with, like, let's say you have your notes, and how cool would it be to have quantizers here? How cool would it be to be able to transpose all of that? How cool would it be to like use portamento overall and all of this? That makes your poly voice more buff, you know? So I was programming this machine, which is like Monomi Teletype. It's like stupid expensive module that has zero functionality because it cannot do anything and everything at the same time. When you buy it, it comes preloaded with a bunch of useless things, and the point is that like into this USB connector you plug your USB keyboard and go and code any functionality you like. It's super simple syntax, and it's really a tool that you can, if you have just basic idea of coding, you can make any possible like CV generation sort of functionality you come up with. So I buy it without a purpose. I wanted it to have it as a tool that can do anything I'm ever going to need and cannot buy. And I was thinking about what it's going to be, and yes, the polyphony solution. So I started to code this and made plenty of different versions, and right now I have this like voltage distributor out of it for my VCOs that lets me like do transposition, sequence, and like store the voltages, distribute it, change amount of polyphony, put a portamento to all voices and everything. You could do this with Shifty, and for slew. Yes, 4 times, but 4 times everything, you know, 4 times everything. That's the point. That's, you know, when you need 4 times same module, it's expensive and space consuming. So, you know, as I wanted to have like 4 VCOs, I get it in 10 HP. I got like sequencer, shift register, for like precision voltage address, and 4 slew limiters in one box that has 14 HP. So that's why I'm able to really like cram this up. But I think like if you can get rid of the portamento stuff, you can really patch this up well with the Shifty or other shift register. And I really think it would be super cool to like fuck volt per octave and have the Shifty and 4 quantizers, you know, and just like run crazy LFOs into it, and then like at the end like play around with the quantizers or something. But at that point you can also like skip the whole shift register idea and just like go crazy with the quantizers. It can be a whole lot of fun. But yeah, point is you need 4 different volt per octave signals that respect the scales you want them to. Because as I showed before, using 1 volt per octave and evenly distributing it to 4 voices that are in certain interval is not musical solution. So you can just like fuck that and go straight into like yeah. Yes. Well, it plays the notes that I play, you know, and that's what I want, because like it's for me A, much faster, B, more intuitive, and you know, like I change everything at the same time for both like mono and poly, and completely change the musical quality of any music I'm doing at the moment. So let's see this in practice. Let's patch the outputs.
Have you published the code from the Monophonic?
No, but it's good point. I can upload it to the Monomi forum. It'd be cool.
Have you connected just friends at the Monophonic?
Yes, but currently the version is it's not usable for me because there are bugs that Brian is not fixing yet. So I'm waiting for him to implement the things that I wrote him to do, and when it's done, I will use the just friends in combination with the Teletype. I'm really looking forward to it, but right now it's useless. They dropped off some crucial functionality that needs to come back. So right now I'm patching all the CV volt per octave CV outputs into my VCOs, and triggers into the envelope gate inputs. I can hear it together. But first we gotta tune.
You get almost 12 outputs from the Monophonic, like the 4 volt per octave.
Well, Monophonic, like I really, because you know this is super specific thing. I don't want to really get hooked up on Monophonic because like you cannot buy it as it is. I mean, like if
in your thing you have like the 4 volt per octave.
4 volt per octave, 4 triggers output. I'm processing 1 CV input, and I made this hack like manual trigger inputs that let me change settings. But I don't want to get stuck on that because if you buy Monophonic, hit me up, I will send you the code. That's not a problem, but you cannot buy this. This is like very specific solution. I want these things that I show you to be translatable to other stuff that you do and modules that you have or considering to buy or whatever. So let's just think of it as shift register sample hold setup, right? So let's tune. So I will just push one note and like this. So this is just the polyphonic line. This is just like, if I put 4 notes, it's going to repeat. This is 4 voice polyphonic. If I go 5, it's going to shift. And as I'm like in tune and controlling my mono voice, but shifted. Same tone of quality. I can do the transposition here because like I program it that way. I'm doing the rhythmical part outside of the melodic part. So right now the VCOs are still going crazy. They're all shifting, but depending when I put the triggers, I make different variations. And yeah, the magic is in the non-retrigable envelopes, as I stressed before. That makes this. I don't have to program 4 triggers, 4 different like rhythmical patterns to achieve this. I have 4 non-retrigable envelopes, so it takes me just one push to completely change the groove. If I make it long, it's going to be like. If I go short. If I want simple steps, this lets me like turn off the non-retrigable behavior and make it retrigable. So it's going to be like smashing chords. If I turn it off, boop, 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 boop. As a delay, I'm currently at this point using a Pico DSP from America because it's small. But what I want to do is change the Hertz donut, put there some different VCOs, make some space, and this way make myself space for microclouds, because I want a clockable delay with pitch shifting, and microclouds is 8 HP solution that can really do the trick. So if I on top of this put some delay that is in rhythm, well, I don't just like straight put it into the output. I run it through a VCA first. That actually has a output, the volt, the envelope of a kick drum, inverted envelope of a kick drum, modulating it. So what happens is that I have my gain stage here, and I have attenuator for if I have the kick here. Make it longer. So after the delay, if I bring up this attenuator, right, ducking. Triggering them all at the same time, but as I said before, because of the non-retriggable envelopes and different ratio between them. So let's say if we talk about strings, right? 4 VCOs, each of them VCO, VCA, VCO envelope, VCA to the filter, that's one string, okay? Each of the string has different envelope length. So as it's non-retriggable, it's going to make these, you know, like grooves within each other. Yes, yes, yes. And I can like select which one is going to appear more often and which one less. But the point is that they're always going to have this like same curve and like just play as long as it's their like envelope length. And then they, at next trigger pulse, they will appear. They can appear again. Yeah. Yeah. You gotta go. Okay.
Thank you so much. See you.
See you around. Ciao, ciao. Yeah, and this speaks with my bass line. Like push another. Well, no. I just play. It plays the tones that I push on the keyboard.
So the quantization is only
well, there's no quantization. It just like samples directly the voltages from the keyboard.
when you do not play all notes at the same time.
What I push, what notes I play, these ones appear in the sequences. Well, I filter it with my mind and knowing which notes I push. No, I didn't say that I have. I was talking like hypothetically that that's an interesting scenario to approach. So you can like make progressions. And then it, like you have an instrument that like makes sense. Your job to like learn to play this stuff and the sequencing tricks over there. So just to scratch that, I talked about it already before a little bit. It's this no need for long progressions, no need for long pieces of sequences. If their combination and time creates longer piece. It's this polymetry. So just approaching this in drums is going to be. I want this like really rocky like kick drum. I'm going to mute the rest. Let's say this sequence is for 16 steps, right? With very basic snare hitting on every second, coming there, right? So if I want still this feeling that like there's that the kick drum hits my 8 notes and has this like feel to it, I can like go make that sequence longer. Let's say I got 16, 32 plus 8, let's say 40 steps, right? So I'm going to make 2.5 bars of kick drum, let's say. That's going to have stuff on 8 notes only. So it's just going to repeat in that. Let's say my snare is going to go like this with a little bit bullshitting in the between, and let's make it like 1.5 bar with this like double hit at the end. So they are now like shifting with each other. And hi-hat I can make even number. So let's say 11 steps. And make some like double hits and so. Now this is, I don't know where this is going to repeat again. But the point is that like it has some certain groove, some vibe to it, and it feels non-repetitive. And same will play with the melodies, with like if I have 4 notes polyphony, I like to play like 5 or 7 or 9 notes or something. I tend to do this because then I don't have to hurry that much, you know? When you have something that's not repeating after 4 seconds, then you have time to go deeper. You can like focus on one voice and really shape it. when you have something that keeps repeating all the time, and you're not necessarily playing music like hard techno where you want the shit to sound exactly the same for 5 minutes, because if you stop people go nuts, then you would have to non-stop change your sequences, non-stop touch everything, and like you just end up reprogramming your pattern every 20 seconds, you know, to move forward. This way it lets you like that it's going and has its own journey that you're just like navigating through, and like really can dive into it, because there's the point of repetition is somewhere far away, and usually don't even you usually don't even reach it. So yeah, I didn't even like patch more stuff. I do also modulate filter for the polyphonic voice with another channel of my knob recording, and change the envelope time with another voice with another step sequencer, right? So if I have it like this, I can go really jazzy. If I put some swing there, but I will find it out with drums more like. Yes, now it's swinging, and if I do this, use triangle waves. I select this like 303 filter because, like, as you can hear, it like beautifully overdrives the triangle waves. I love to use triangle waves in polyphony because unlike other waveforms, when you mix them up, they create moving really like yeah, but you know, they pulse. You know, they pulse within each other. There's like sort of phasing in these things that are not they are not in unison. If you use square waves or sawtooths, you put them in unison, you get phasing. You get phasing with anything. But when you use triangle waves and put them in different like pitches and stuff, they still create this like moving, slow, nice timbre. So I like to use them, but they have triangle waves usually are they all have also no almost no like higher harmonic content, so there's not much shit to filter, but I overdrive them in the filter, so you get like they're dry, but I heat it up, and their loudest points get cracky, you know? So that's like, I really like this sound. And when I modulate the envelope length, I make it longer. Yeah. So I can like have it long like this, and then go. So it's like, you know, like let's it play, and then like cram a few notes and so on, and it's like super nice and jazzy feeling to it. It's like someone's playing the Rhodes or something, you know. Absolutely. And you put it all together. achieve this stuff utilizing basic step sequencers, you know, with mainly when you like do this like note and gate at the same time and things like this, you know, like this ends up to be really like much more like fluid, groovy, melodic, musical, whatever you say. So yeah, that's the secret behind the poly, and so that it's all rooted up together with the mono voice, and in the mono voice I tend to do the mix of the polyphonic strings, VCOs into it. Get really like housey. You can mix it up. So yeah, the trick is like one good like intuitive volt per octave source and this shift register business, multiple VCOs, both either something like this that lets you control everything at the same time, or multiple VCOs with common source, so you can like change the parameters for everything at the same time. And as you can see, there's one filter for the whole polyphonic voice. And why does it sound that it's like not just EQ'd? It's because it's controlled with this mix of the envelopes. Because normally it sounds like this. It's just like, it's like you're filtering a sample or something. But when I have this mix of the envelopes, it feels like each of them is actually having a filter, but it doesn't, you know. So yeah, depth.
You mix all the envelopes.
I mix the envelopes and put them into the filter. Yes, that's the trick, how you make it like sound like actual instruments. That's filter. So that's the trick. You know, like Depfer just released this like quad filter setup, and I'm not getting it because one is enough if you like use it this way. And yeah, the patch is still not finished. There's more fun stuff. What I like to do here is it's like I call this like VCO that I'm like using for these drums, you know. It's like my glue. So I take sine wave and I make it appear gently in the filter. If I get rid of the modulation, at high frequencies it's going to make this like nice. LFO behavior. And as it has on all my drums, it all just sounds like compact and together. So I don't have I have one frequency that appears in my snare, in the hi-hat and everything, and even though each of the sound is completely different, they work together. And I can modulate this in a crazy way and they're always going to work together. You see, you cut off this bullshit region I was talking about because you do crazy modulations, but it's always appealing or whatever. So yeah, there's last few cables that I would patch before I would play live, and that's for Musicon. So I would take another of these like knob automation like channels and control a filter of this polyphonic voice. So I could really filter it down. And go like. And make these like filtered like notes. And I will take the clock here, and I have this divider. Because I have built-in sequencer within this like voltage distributor monomy business. Here I have like easy like this is from Falafluar, guy from Holland, who does these crazy things out of like spare plastic trash next to the laser cutter. And this is called like Späternizer, and it's actually a quarter of his much more complex and interesting module that's called Patternizer. And this is just a simple clock divider that's controlled with buttons, and that's a performative thing for me because I don't have a basic clock divider when I need to take a cable, plug it out of my second division and plug it into 4 division or whatever it is, but I have LED lights and I know which division I'm at, and with pushing buttons I'm changing it, and therefore changing length of my pattern from whatever the number it is to its double size and half the resolution. Does make sense? Cool. Yeah, and I think that might be it for now. A bit of Musicon. I'm starting to get really tired with like talking, and I still have this one. But yeah, there's it's really cool in this polyphony to like this lets me like it has each VCO has its secondary modulation VCO, and I like to put modulation like LFO to make this vibrato on it. You know, it's just starts to sound like super rich. But we were just like using these triangle waves. That's super simple and basic. I think it's like great. You know, it's similar structure sound-wise, for example, with the Cork Monopoly, where it's super appealing to like change waveforms per voice or string, if you like to call it that way. So that's why would it be appealing for me to as this has like Quadnic is wavetable VCO, 4 voice on 12 HP. If I'm considering to buy 4 Erika Saint Pico VCOs, because it's also wavetable VCOs. If it's 4 of them, it's also 12 HP. And I could just easily like dial in different wavetables per voice and so on. So that might be appealing, but
you lose the main control for
yes. So it's it's different now. This works really well for me, but eventually I'm gonna get bored and need to do something. So yeah. So yeah. Yes, let's hit me with the
Transitions. I know it's over.
yes.
Transitions. Anything to say about because you make the transitions. I mean, this is like bass awesomeness, and then you transition between different versions of it.
Well,
Anything to say?
yes, that's your main weapon in performance. That's the thing that you go and practice. I play at home, and sometimes I'm making a build up, you know, and want to make transition. And if I fuck it up, I come back and make it again, because I get pissed when it doesn't come down. That's you know, that's your transitions are the way are the things when it really proves, you know, when.
Create tension.
Yes, that's, you know, like patterns, what's going on, that's one thing, you know, like you need to program your music, you need to like make it blah 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 sound, everything needs to be alright. But when the shit actually happens is between those things, because eventually you need to change, and the way how you change is both how you like create good stuff, you know, if it's like it needs to be nice, and that's a point of like exploration for me, a lot in the studio where I practice these things and show it on stage. So you have your voices, you play around, you know, like at home you have completely different instruments than I do. But it sounds good in this patch or setup or setting, and then it sounds good in this, and you need to find a way how to come from one to another in many interesting ways. So for example, like it's crucial to have like a good muting setup for you. Mutes and silence is a super important thing and powerful tool in music. Not sound, but silence. Make it be quiet and play with this, you know, like you have multiple sound sources. What like my philosophy is not layering thousands of shit over each other as you would do in Ableton or whatever, just like and this on top of that and that and that and that, and that's my music. I find it much more appealing, not just music and sound-wise, but mainly from the performance part, is to have few sound sources. So you can hear all this kind of music, but what it is? It's actually kick drum, it's snare drum, it's hi-hat, it's second hi-hat, poly voice and mono voice. Back in the day, I was just performing with like kick, snare, hi-hat, and mono voice, you know. And if you have these few elements, then you have to really like morph and transform into something else on the fly that creates many interesting things. So yes, focus on this, on like how to transform one nice thing into another nice thing, nice way, you know. So yeah, I'm using the mutes. You need good mute solution, whatever it is. If it's nice fader that feels really good, or if it's switch that is direct, or if it's anything you like. And there's multiple ways of muting things. Hard muting is actually like, you know, you just like cut off the sound. What if you want to have your tails of your reverb still sounding? You are cutting your gates and triggers. So get switches for triggers or whatever, you know. Then building up these things. I'm using, for example, I'm using delays by feedbacking them up to this like noise wall, and then suddenly cutting off the wet dry mix. I can show you, like, if I make transition, let's say like this. I have something like this. Let's say I'm gonna want to change a pattern. I'm going to raise the delay on this. In the meantime, I'm going to reprogram my drum pattern. Make some noise with the hi-hats. Wall of sound, and then suddenly cut it with bringing back the kick. You know, simple as that. Same you can do with your effects. that like I'm going to like go this, in the meantime change it. You know, build something up that you can then bring down. You can use effects for this, you can use like your VCAs, your envelope settings, anything like this, but that's always relative to the instrument you use or the patch that you're working with. So it has many variations, you are exploring it at home. Point is to find, not only find the best settings or sounds, but also like how to exploit them to make these transitions. Yes. So yeah, mutes, build-ups, explore that. I cannot really tell you this is the trick because I can tell you tricks on this, but you need to find your own at home by exploring this, you know. And like when you have two things that are good, find a way how to get from one to another. And when you have something good, like a patch, because you know, like patch is building an instrument, and that's one thing. And performing is not patching. Performing is playing an instrument. You have a patch that becomes your guitar or whatever it is, and then go and spend the time. You know, you rate good patch by having great sound at the moment, because like, yeah, patch this, it sounds fucking great, I love it, right? Don't go and patch, don't go and search for another sound by patching a different patch. Have the very same patch and explore it to the point that you get many great results. Or like adding things on top of that you can tune down, have your nice sound you had before, but if you tweak this, you get into something different that is also really nice, you know? And just cram shit on top of it, like more and more like complex stuff that can be simple at the same time, with attenuators, switches, things like this. So the thing can sound like there's 5 cables, but you still have this flexibility for many different things, utilizing switches and weird like mixers or anything like this. The point of like being able to play in front of people for a long time, non-repetitively, and bring some story is having this flexibility. So build voices that sound great and have many different variations to them. Try to combine the things, you know, like having, if you have bass line and mixing VCOs, put their noise. So your bass line, if you put it down and totally remove the VCOs, have just noise, suddenly you have snare drum or whatever it is, you know. Change this and search for many variations in every single channel you use to get to the point that your kick can be hi-hat, your hi-hat can be snare, your bass line can be drums, your whatever can be whatever else, to prevent crazy repatching or repetition. So you have flexibility. Flexibility is the key to be able to play for a long time, and you finish after 1 hour and people feel like it was 20 minutes, and you spit out billion of different variations and ideas, and it's you have feeling like you just listen to an album, not to a pattern, you know. So yeah, I'm starting to be really like with like my brain. So thank you.